he gifted to Hitler a leather-bound book of all the An and Iba beliefs and what he thought was facts. And Hitler basically got furious and told him, again paraphrasing, cut the shit.
Just cut the shit, dude.
Hitler was just sick of it at this point. He's like, all right, we get it. You're into some weird shit. Enough. Maybe he got a little too cozy with some of these birds.
Only explanation I have in where a Fiat Uno could keep up with a Mercedes S280, okay?
It's not that I wouldn't fight Mothman. I would beat the shit out of him.
We're seasoned.
So wait, you mean to tell me they have a festival commemorating the day a man got his shit rocked by an extraterrestrial carrot?
My neighbors across the street, they are not real.
But a pyramid is the most boring shape.
Part Sasquatch, part trickster midget. What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us in the Conspiracy Kitchen, where we uncover the secret ingredients behind life's daily mysteries. I'm your head chef, Joe, and I'm accompanied by my sous chef, Josh, who I guess had a little incident with someone or some entity or some collection of people that tried to silence him again, didn't you, Josh?
They're trying to silence us, and it didn't happen. You didn't get me, you bastards. No,
What happened?
Well, all right, so I've been having issues with my Jeep. The strut broke or fell through what holds up the strut as I was driving, so I started driving crooked, and passersby were pointing and laughing at me, so that was fun.
The mount rotted away, I guess, right?
The mount, yeah, it rotted away and basically disintegrated. So I limped it to my garage, and it sat there for like 2 weeks. So I got into an accident the other day. I was borrowing my stepfather's car. He was nice enough to let me use it. And, I just filled the gas tank. I was feeling good. I was on my way to the store. And I'm driving, and I'm about to make a left down a side street. And across the street, right in front of, the turn to go down there, there's a woman parked. Lights off, everything parked. So I'm like, all right, I'm good. I turn. As I'm basically down the street, she just shoots out into the road and directly into the back door of the car. And I see her shoot out, so I try to quickly go, and I guess I jumped the curb, but she still hit me. And, she pulls over, I pull over. My stepdad, funny enough, is out for his morning walk and sees the entire thing. And just walks over. He's like, "What the fuck, man?" And I'm like, "Ugh." So, yeah, I want to say it's the Russians, but in reality, it's just a very nice Spanish lady. She was very kind.
But can't drive.
Can't drive. Not worth a shit. I think she had said something like, "Oh, I guess you just didn't see me." I was like, "No, I did. I saw you parked, and now I'm on the side of the road." But I was so annoyed because the back door is caved in, and you can't drive it because it's cutting into the tire. So luckily he has another car he could use, but I was so pissed. And I felt so bad. I was like, "I'm so sorry. This is your car. I feel horrible." And he's like, "The car's 25 years old. I don't really care."
Yeah. The police came. They did their report.
No. We both use the same insurance company, so we just did it through insurance. But I spoke to the insurance company on the phone because she was taking down the statement, and then she's like, "Well, usually in this scenario, it'd be your fault." And I'm like, "Well, I don't see how that's a thing." I'm like, "The woman was parked, and I was down the street already." She's like, "Yeah, I don't know." I'm like, "You must be new."
That's why, yeah, that's the main reason you get a police report.
Yeah, I should.
Because of that nonsense.
Last time I got a police report, and I still got blamed for it because I was driving down the street, and a woman was down the side road. It's always, me hitting a woman, apparently. She was at a red light, and she still turned into the street, and I couldn't stop in time, and I hit the back of her. And the cop even was like, yeah, man, she should not have gone. And I'm like, thank you. Insurance was like, nah, your fault. Sorry.
Yeah.
Great.
Isn't it funny, too? Because, I mean, I had two old ladies make an illegal U-turn in front of me, and I T-boned them. And it was right after I filled the tank, too. I was just out of high school at that point. And I'm coming down the street, and these two old ladies just whip a U-turn on a divided road at a light, and I T-boned them, and it was obviously their fault. I got the police report said it was their fault. The insurance agreed and everything. The first thing they said to me was, when I get out, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We were just trying to find the Chinese buffet." I was like, "Are you serious?"
I remember this. Was this the red Mustang?
Yeah, my first car.
It's a good car.
Yeah, but they just freaking right out in front of me, trying to find the Chinese buffet. There's no Chinese buffet around there. No. It's like 15 minutes the other way. Like, I don't know. You just make a U-turn in front of me like that. It's fine. But anyway, yeah, that fucking, you always fill your tank up. It's never like, oh, it's an accident with an empty tank. It's always an accident with a full tank.
Yeah, because then it's just sitting there. You can't use it, and it's got a full tank just teasing you. So now as a rule, just a good luck thing, I don't fill the tank. I'll put like $20 in it, but yeah, don't fill your tank because bad things happen. But yeah, that's been my 2 weeks so far. The Jeep is now fixed. We had to put a part in and weld it, and that was a whole fucking ordeal. But yeah, that's what I'm dealing with.
Well, at least it's fixed now, I guess, and I guess we'll get into what we're actually here to talk about, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Before we get sidetracked on a bunch of other stuff, too, like Flat Earth. Being it's September, we're going to do a couple episodes, I think, on this, and we're going to start with, September being the anniversary of World War II. I think we're going to start with the Nazi Occult, right? We'll start with that first. Now, a lot of people, I don't know if, a lot of people just think the Nazi was just a political party, like the National Socialist Party in Germany, and it was just a fascist organization that ran the country. I don't believe a lot of people know that it actually turned out to be a full-on religion. Complete religion based on, what would you even say it's based on? Fantasy? Maybe you could say fantasy.
You could say full nonsense.
With a dribble of historical facts that were completely embellished beyond belief.
Yes.
Perhaps something like that. Yeah, so
1,000%.
Not 1,000%. This would be the first of, I think we're going to do a couple episodes. Now, the Nazis started out, they used what we would call the Germania. It was a book written by Romans about ancient Germanian tribes in Northern Europe. And that's, for lack of a better term, their Bible. And a failed chicken farmer by the name of Himmler on a train read it for the first time, and this is where he got basically his idea of how he's going to justify the destruction of millions of people in Europe. So, at the end of the day, I know Hitler, I'm not saying Hitler's he's a piece of shit. Himmler was even worse. He's the reasoning behind everything that happens in Germany. And it's all based off of this religion they come up with based on a book written by Romans back in, I think the book was written 1000 AD or something, based on a war that happened in 96 AD. But I think it actually, the occult kind of started forming before even Himmler, right?
Yes. Oh my God, it goes back so far. So basically, when Germany was forming as a country, this is what, 1871, around there. This is well before the Third Reich, all of that. It's also around the time when many mainstream religions were starting to lose attendance. It was declining due to capitalism progressing in science and technology. People were losing interest, basically. Same time, though, people still wanted, to have that connection to, spirituality and stuff like that. Something more than themselves. So they turned to different things. A lot of it, spiritualism and paganism. That was a big one. Yeah, I don't know why people would jump to paganism.
Because this whole religion is kind of based loosely on Norse gods as well. Thor, Odin. Odin's a big one.
Odin's a big one, yeah. They were also at the same time, archaeologists were making discoveries of prehistory and ancient civilizations, and Germany wanted to keep their national identity rather, as pure Germans, so they turned to old folklore and turned that into their canon history, which makes me laugh. So people are believing in their gods and mainstream religions, and then you got Germany over here saying like, well, we got werewolves and we got monsters and a big sun god and his son Siegfried, and he's buff as shit and blonde. It's all true, by the way. This is exactly what they were believing in.
This is factual information if you're in Germany, and it kind of relates now, or it's similar to North Korea. They've isolated themselves. They literally said the dictator before, Kim Jong-un, what was his name? I forgot his name now.
Kim Jong-il?
Kim Jong-il, before, was a god. He wasn't a human. He was a god, right? They literally said he was a god. So it's the same thing. Like, you isolate yourself, because Germany isolated themselves, and then you come up with this whole crazy, ornate reasoning for your country to be isolated because it's better than everyone else, and then they use it for propaganda with their people. Hitler did it, and Kim Jong-un does it, to say that they're the more powerful people on the planet.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Kim Jong-un is just a fat little man in a suit. It does not fit him at all.
Can't say. You could be listening. Can't say that.
Oh, hi, welcome. Well, he's not listening. Can you imagine, though, he responds on X? He's like, I heard what you said. I don't agree.
I'm buff as shit.
I'm buff as shit. I'm not fat. I'm ripped. The suit just can't contain my thunder. All right. But, yeah, so the Germans would tell these stories of, gods and all of that. And a lot of the monsters, there would be gods versus monsters. And a lot of these monsters, in the descriptions of them, sounded awfully familiar to a rude way they would describe a certain, religious group of people. Yeah, they didn't care for the Jews. They thought they were a bit much, but yeah, a lot of them, and then they managed to mix Christianity and pagan traditions, and that was successful among the people. So that became the norm, and them hating the Jews and being against them became the norm. So anti-Semitism, all of that, but German schools even attempted to teach this as history. They were like,
yep.
This is our epic history. This is where we came from. Mm-hmm. It is incredible. But right around the same time as they were teaching it in schools, something called Völkisch nationalism started, which says an ideal German is racially pure and had spiritual connections to the land. So people began to speculate that having pure blood would have spiritual and magic benefits. And with that, Völkisch secret societies started appearing all over Germany. So the occult thing grew, which one of these societies is called the Thule Society, which they were very strict. Members had to show proof that they were completely pure, had no Jewish descent. It was all about, racial nationalism.
Yeah.
The founder was an occultist, astrologer, Rudolf von Zotov, and he decided to, mark the group with a symbol that he stole from an Eastern religion, which we now know as the swastika. So that's where that comes from.
And later on, we'll talk about when they do the Tibet expedition, really. That's one of the reasons, or one of the ways they can get in, right? After talking to the Tibet higher-ups. They say, well, we have the swastika too, and we're more closely related. That's how he's actually allowed to get into Tibet. Or one of the reasons, I should say.
Yeah, I thought...
We talk about Schaefer.
Didn't they get, invited to go? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
So, yeah, when we talk about Tibet, we'll talk about it when we talk about Tibet. But that's one of the reasons they got in there. They were brought in, yeah.
This is also where their great theory of how the human race came to be came from, which Joe and I were discussing before we started recording, and it's a little silly. They believed that...
It's fact.
It's fact. I'm sorry. Hitler even went on record saying this was fact. Completely true. You can look it up. They believed that the human race arrived on Earth when an ice moon that was nearby crashed on Earth and brought a civilization of ancient Aryans that had a golden age of civilization, basically having Atlantis, which, like I said, golden age, good for them, but then that was snuffed out by a second ice moon, which is why we're now finding, or in their minds, which is now why we're finding artifacts of this early civilization, and they weren't still around because the second ice moon just, wanted to take them out, take them down a peg.
So I have a question about the ice moons, though.
Yes.
The first one crashes and brings people, or civilization. Then why does the second one destroy it? Wouldn't it just bring a second civilization?
You would think. I don't know why they'd be any different. I feel like when explaining this to people, they didn't, what's the term, plan ahead.
They just didn't think at all.
No, not in the slight. The Nazis ultimately were a group of silly geese. And normally I wouldn't, belittle people for their beliefs, but these are Nazis and I could give a fuck. They weren't the brightest of people, and a lot of people in Germany took what they said as fact, even though it was complete horseshit.
In another episode we'll get to, that when you say not the brightest, in certain ways they were brilliant, which will be our next episode, guys. We're going to do a second episode on this, on technology, UFOs, and aliens, based on Nazis. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The Thule Society, they were also, extremists, far-right extremists. In 1919, socialists took over Munich and declared a republic. And the Thule Society plotted to kidnap the leader of the new republic and sent agents to infiltrate the military. But they were found out and, killed immediately. They're executed, which made the right-wing militias rise up and take back the city. The Thule Society was not a good political party, though, because they became a political party.
Yeah.
People did not really give a shit what they had to say because they sounded insane. But eventually they formed the German Workers' Party, an organization of mainly World War I vets who were very anti-Semitic. I can't stress that enough, how anti-Semitic they were. They were a small party. No one really gave a shit about them up until they got their newest member, a young fellow by the name of Adolf Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So, Adolf Hitler was also anti-Semitic. He wanted
You
to.
didn't say.
Well,
You don't say. No.
well, he thought, like I said, he thought they were a bit much, which eventually led to. You ever hear about the massive book burning in 1933 in Berlin?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they decided to burn over 25,000 books, a lot of which were science books. Now, why would they burn science books? Because in their minds, mainstream science was very Jewish.
It was Jewish science, and Jewish science was wrong.
It was apparently very not pure. Which I don't understand it. What the fuck? Oh my god. Wouldn't science just be science? Why does it?
No. There's Nazi science, which is just pure conjecture and folklore, or there's real science, but that's Jewish. So it's not good.
It's not good science.
Because it doesn't help their cause. But there is one book they wanted so bad, the Germania, they wanted that. They wanted that book. They didn't burn that. Well, they didn't have it. They didn't have the original manifest that they wanted.
Yeah. Well, Hitler was a bad egg. He mainly stayed with the group because, their nationalism and anti-Semitism. He quickly rose to the top, surpassing all other members before him, which they didn't like because he was like the golden boy. But, say what you want. The man could, he could speak.
He could speak. Yeah, he was very persuasive. And he could... Well, he couldn't paint. He could paint motel art. Not anything that's going to get you some good money on the market. But, if you got a motel, he got some paintings for you.
Yeah, if you got a poorly lit doctor's office with an empty wall, boy, do we know the guy to call.
He can give you a nice flat landscape.
Oh yeah, he ended up getting rid of a lot of the old members, people that didn't agree with him, obviously because he wanted to be in control. However, he didn't get rid of the occultists, which there were a lot of them, which we'll get into later on. They formed a newspaper that they funded themselves. All propaganda, obviously. But in this, they talked about communists as demons, and they mentioned Jews as vampires.
Yes.
To scare people.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that in a little bit when they talk about these supernatural creatures or cryptids, really, kind of. Yeah. So from what I understand, they called the Jews vampires because they weren't purebloods. So they had to then siphon the blood out of other people, purebreds, Aryans, and stuff, so they could live. If not, they would die. And that's their reasoning behind that. And then we get into werewolves as well, which we can get into, I guess, when we talk about SS and the members in the occult with them. And then we had the witches, right? Witches, the whole, from what I understand, the Nazis believed when we did the whole witch trials here and the burning of the witches at the stake and everything, that was Christians killing off Aryans because they were afraid of their... Because Aryans, pure-blooded Aryans, were supernatural. They had gifts. They could actually perform magic and stuff. And that was the Christians' way of getting rid of them, was the whole Salem witch trials and all that stuff.
It's just
incredible. A little weird.
It's just incredible.
Because a purebred Aryan, they're magical. They're supernatural.
Yeah. They're the golden race, apparently. But, yeah, because a lot of the members were authors and, writers, stuff like that printed so much propaganda about that. And they they just wanted to scare people, and they're like, oh wow, these guys know what they're talking about. We should really keep reading their shit. Which I don't know why, but you know. But while other leaders of the party, like our guy Heinrich Himmler and Rudolf Hess, were well-known occultists. They were very, into that stuff. Hitler was an atheist. He was a documented atheist, but he was more into science. But because modern science was seen as tainted by the Jews, he had no choice but to take on some of the Thule Society's original beliefs, which is why the dumb shit comes back. And that's why in 1942 Hitler was interviewed, and he completely endorsed the world ice theory with the ice moons hitting the Earth. And he's like, no, that's what happened. Yeah. That's why we're the best. We come from an ice moon. Just a fucking... I don't understand. How do these people come into power? They think a fucking ice moon created humanity.
Well, I can see some of where they would maybe get some of this information from, because I know that I was studying something a while ago where it talked about our amino acid makeup and stuff like that, and it's highly different than anything else living on the planet, but then they found something more similar on an asteroid or something, and that's where the whole human race maybe came from a different planet theory came about, or hypothesis really came about, because our structure is quite different than anything else really living on this planet, even primates and stuff, right? We're the only one that I was reading into this. We're the only one that can get like these back issues compared to any other animal, and they're trying to say, well, maybe because our DNA or genetic makeup was used to a smaller planet, so it would have less of a gravitational force, we'd weigh less. We're also the only living creature on the planet that needs help giving birth. Nothing else on this planet needs help with that. And there's a whole other list of stuff I was actually reading about how we're different than anything else living here, which I guess now just makes me a fucking occultist, right?
Well, you're a Nazi. I don't mean it. I'm kidding. But no, but I see where you're coming from. But at the same time, if I heard somebody telling me this and then also saying, the Jews are actually vampires, I wouldn't believe them. I'm sorry. I would think a little bit and be like, wait, you're kind of stupid.
But they get a lot of these ideas from the Romans, and like I said before, that Germania, the book written back in the Roman Empire times, based off of those fights where the Roman Empire sent 3 Roman legions into their territory, and these tribal Germans were able to guerrilla warfare and absolutely decimate 3 legions, scaring the ever-living shit out of people and inspiring this book. And the book basically has talks about first the land, right? In the early chapters, it talks about how Germany was rugged, forested, with harsh weather, and it was unsuitable for Roman style. So it showed that the Germans had a hardy lifestyle. It talked about their social structures. The Germanic tribes were organized by kinship with elected chiefs and assemblies for decision making. They value hospitality, which they didn't have anymore, I guess. That's the one thing I guess they didn't read in the book. Feasting and loyalty to their leaders. And that was something that Hitler really pushed out of this book, loyalty to your leaders. The book also talked about, it's 302 page or something. I think you can get it anywhere, really. You can read this thing if you really wanted to see where they got their crazy ideas from. Talk about their culture and customs. The German culture and customs are they portrayed their culture as simple, warlike. They had strong emphasis on personal honor, bravery, and they practiced monogamy, strict moral codes. They excelled in warfare. Talked about their warfare. Talked about how they fought using infantry and cavalry, wielding spears and shields, and chanting to intimidate their enemies. Their warriors, their fighters, were motivated by glory and loyalty. they didn't really get the material gain. They were more focused on what other people thought of them and their loyalty to their leaders. They talked about the religion in this book. They worshipped nature-based deities, like we were talking about before. And the women were often used to hold had spiritual roles in this. And they talk about certain tribes and where their tribes were located and stuff. And him, like I was mentioned before, the Pharaoh chicken farmer and Himmler, he read this book. And this is where he got all his ideas. And they took this book, written by a Roman, not even a German, by a Roman, Tacitus, and said, this is what we're going to base it off of, because these ancient tribal Germans is what we are. This is the purest German form. The Germans that were in this book were depicted as, the Aryan. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Fierce blue eyes, it was described as. So, Himmler just runs with this, right? Absolutely runs with it. But there's some parts that they forget, right? They don't, the hospitality thing and shit like that, they kind of throw that out the window. Unless you're an Aryan, I guess. But this becomes basically what they form all of Nazi Germany off of. And like I said before, for lack of a better term, this becomes their Bible. And they believe Aryans came from Atlantis, right? Mm-hmm. That's the master race. And they believe that, Atlantis did form these other races. They believe this served the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Romans, the Greeks. They think they spread off to all of them, but those weren't pure anymore. They lost their way. But the Germans stuck to the original master race, and they are the superior being on the planet.
It's just I love how you kept bringing up the hospitality thing. Were the Nazis not welcoming? Well.
I guess they're welcoming if you were blonde hair, blue eyed, Aryan who can prove it, even though Hitler wasn't blonde hair, blue eyed. He did dye his hair later on, right? But he was dark haired. If you're Christian, Jewish, Gypsy, Polish, homosexual, basically anything that wasn't. They did not have hospitality towards you. I don't think getting fed breadcrumbs in some fucking shithole of a place is very hospitable.
Yeah, probably not. They should have looked into that. They needed better living conditions. No, but yeah. So Hitler was more into science himself, but again, he had to use the theories of the Thule Society, which became supernatural science, what he referred to as an antidote to Jewish physics, and a more Aryan explanation for natural phenomena. But then, after all of that, they could do science freely without being accused of, Jewish fraternization, which didn't really work out for them because the Nazis, they drove out the Jews, all the leftist academics, which weaken the country's scientific strength overall, which is what kept them behind the other countries in the nuclear research. But, they knew what they were doing.
Sure.
Well,
yeah. I mean, they even believed Jesus was an Aryan, but he was tainted by the Jews.
No. Just not even a little.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Jesus was a ripped Middle Eastern dude. At least in every church I go to, he's fucking shredded.
Shredded.
Jesus was buff as shit, dude. For no reason. He was just buff.
Yeah, well, he was, back in those days, you have to think, back in those days, if you weren't royalty in the castle, you had to be, because you were a worker, you labor, right? You either were fat because you got a bunch of food and didn't do anything, or you were a peasant and made work, so you didn't get as much food and you fucking worked and you became shredded. Back then, if you were fat, that was a sign of prestige. Oh, he can eat. He has the ability to eat. He doesn't have to work. He's a king. He's fat. Nowadays, not the same.
No, I work a lot, and I mean, I'm still buff as shit, but like I got a pot belly.
Yeah, he's buff, but he has a little papa that covers it up, huh?
I'm fat.
But he's ripped though. How do you think he beats those cryptids? Like when he's in Antarctica, shredded.
But side note about Jesus, real quick. Did you see that they're coming out with a movie where Nicolas Cage plays Jesus?
No, I did not see that.
I'm so excited. People are like furious about it, but yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so then we get more into like the occultist stuff, and Hitler starting to get a little angry at it. It was April 1933. A man by the name of Eric Hannesen, who was a well-known clairvoyant and cultist, was found shot to death in a field. Yeah, he was known to have been associated, with the nationalists and some stormtroopers. They knew him, so he, rubbed elbows with the wrong people. But then in his visions, quote unquote, he mentioned the coming of a Third Reich, and his greatest public prediction was that the Nazis would come to power after a fire at the Reichstag. And he was, he was shot shortly after, most likely, a stormtrooper told him too much, and then he made it public, and they didn't like that. Also, he was shot right after Hitler was given, was it permission to rule without...
No.
Yeah, without being held back or some shit like that. He could do whatever he wanted, basically.
Yeah, full on. Yeah, that's when basically he became a dictator, huh?
Yeah. So right after that, this little fellow got shot in a field. But many self-proclaimed clairvoyants made livings by predicting the Nazis' rise to power because they saw what was coming. They could see, they could read it on the wall, so they were like, all right, I can make a buck by just stating the obvious, basically. And some felt Hitler was not hard enough on them, and that caused issues, so then he had to kind of up his game and crack down on these people, which eventually he made it, I don't know if he made it illegal, but he
outlawed clairvoyance if it didn't benefit the Nazis. It was basically illegal. Yeah.
No. There was also a woman. This one kind of made me laugh. One person that was against clairvoyance, one of these people that she was basically a skeptic, calling these people out. Her name was Mette del Ludendorff. Was the second wife of World War I General Erich Ludendorff. The number one hater of occultism. She hated it. And she went after everyone she could and basically debunked them. Eric Hannesen was one of them. She also had beliefs that Germany only lost World War I because it was sabotaged by Jews, communists, and occultists. So that doesn't help. In the 1930s, though, her and her husband were publishing books saying that occultists were secretly allied with the Jews, Freemasons, and others, orchestrated by the Dalai Lama, which is the most insane shit that I've ever heard. Well, yeah. But it was so insane that the Nazis, disassociated with her, which, how crazy you have to be to fucking...
to have the Nazis think you're crazy?
Yeah, they're like, you know what, we don't know this broad, and y'all have a nice day. Another thing was May 10th, 1941, Rudolf Hess flew alone to the UK. You heard about that one? And crashed.
No.
He left and he crashed in Scotland and was immediately captured and handed over to British interrogators. Mm-hmm. And he told them that he was coming to negotiate peace between the UK and Germany. And then Yeah, he wrote Hitler a letter basically saying what he was doing, like, hey, I got this, don't worry. Hitler didn't want to look weak, or he didn't want Italy and Japan to think that he was trying for peace with the UK, so he
Yeah.
published in the newspaper that they had that Hess went crazy and fell prey to astrologers and mediums. So immediately smeared him. Immediately.
Yep.
And that's dude, the fact how quick he turned on his own guy. He's like, "Nah, I don't know this dude. He's a fucking crazy person."
Well, I mean, even during war to begin with, 1941, they were like peak right there. Germany, they were moving. So for him to go over there and say we're going to negotiate peace when literally Germany had the upper hand completely at that time, I could see would piss Hitler off. You know what I mean? He has all the power. Why would you go ask UK for peace at this point? You'd want to own UK because at that point you think you can own UK.
Yeah, you don't want to appear weak. You don't want, like I said, the allies or people you're trying to ally with to think you're against them. But this kicked off, is it Reinhard Heinrich, or Heinrich the Hangman, as he came to be known, launched, who didn't like, he didn't like Hess at all. He was very against Hess. I read that they despised each other. But that launched what was called Action Hess, which started off the whole thing, arresting hundreds of occultists and shutting down anything they were doing. So like mediums, occultists, all of that. Although the occultists studying science, oddly enough, were spared, but I guess because they were contributing, kind of.
Kinda.
Yeah. But then there's a whole thing with stage magicians that they immediately complained. They're like, no, we're here for entertainment purposes. We don't, we're not occultists or anything like that. We just want to entertain. And Hitler ended up sparing them in return of them entertaining his troops.
Yeah, they need the jesters.
Yeah, it's like Dance Monkey. But then a bunch of occultist books were taken by Himmler and immediately brought to his personal library.
Yeah.
And then when Hitler asked him, hey, bud, what the fuck? Basically. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but
yeah.
he was like, no, I need these because I need to prove the stories of the Supermen coming from the ice moons. I need to prove that. And so I need these to do my research, which then kicks off them looking for artifacts, which we're gonna get into that now, I think, because the Nazis, they love their trinkets.
Yeah, they did love their trinkets, but we didn't talk about we got to bring up they're basically the occult home base, if you will, right? Their clubhouse. We didn't bring up the Weevelsburg Castle.
Mm-hmm.
This is like their headquarters, right? And in the North Tower, they had the Black Sun on the floor. And this is where they perform their rituals. And they believe the Black Sun would give them supernatural abilities, like healing and stuff, which is, again, going back, I guess, looking at the Norse type religion. Because they also, Odin was like their big, how would you put this? They loved Odin, right? Because he was a warrior, and defend and Thor as well, right? They actually wanted to find Thor's hammer. It's one of the trinkets, which is, again, you know what I mean. One of many trinkets, but the first trinket, I guess we could talk about maybe would be the Holy Grail, right?
Yes, he enlisted the help of a gentleman, Otto Rahn, who was searching for the Holy Grail. He believed that it was connected to a sun god that the Germans believed in, and which he then attributed to. He was connecting it to Buddhism, saying they utilize ritual cups. And right there, he's like, see, the Holy Grail's real because they also believe it. It's like, I don't know.
It's 100% now.
I don't know how many straws you got to grasp at, but he got there.
We do that. Right?
All the time.
I said Germans caused the shark attacks in the Jersey Shore, but but they did. I got there, and it was 100% accurate. Don't tell me it's not.
No. I could see where you were coming from with that. There's at least some kind of logic behind it. Whereas this is utter nonsense.
It's not just some kind of logic. That was absolute fact.
No.
But, yeah, so Otto Rahn, he believed the Cathars had the Holy Grail. Right? Mm-hmm. And he believed it was in Montségur, a castle in France. Right? I think it was southwest France. And this is like the last stronghold for these people. And he believed that's where it was held. And then he gets sent there. Himmler says, yeah, basically gives him unlimited funds. The SS will fund him to find the Holy Grail because they want the Holy Grail. They believe it gives you eternal life and healing abilities, the same as like doing some kind of weird ritual around a black sun painted on the floor. So they believe the Holy Grail would help them. And if they find it, it'll bring... They can basically use it as a weapon as well. Having soldiers, with healing abilities and eternal life, not being able to die on the battlefield, was a big thing for them, I guess. Besides the fact they gave them drugs all the time, the soldiers, so they didn't die. But I guess that's a different episode. But so they send him out. He goes there. He searches the whole castle, and sure enough, he doesn't find it. Then he believes that it must have been taken out when the Cathars were being overrun in their last stand. He believes some of them escaped out the back. So then he said, you know what? Maybe it's actually not there. It's actually in Montserrat, Spain. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not entirely sure. It sounds similar, he said, so it must be there. So then they send him out there. But at this point, Himmler actually gets kind of annoyed with his lack of findings, right? So he goes out to this place. It's a big, intricate cave system. And again, he spends a ton of money trying to find through these caves in Spain. And I guess you already know the story. He doesn't find the cup, right? The Holy Grail is not found there. But he does find bones, human remains. And he says, this is Grail bones, he calls it. These are Grail bones. And he brings the bones back, basically because he said, this is Cathar bones. The Grail's somewhere there. I just can't find it at the time. Himmler's basically like, well, you fucking suck. You failed. And off he goes to be a guard at Buchenwald. The concentration camp, obviously. At this point, he's an SS. He's actually a captain now. At this point in the SS, Himmler moved him up to captain when he said he could find the Grail and failed, so he moves him as a guard. He has yet to do because Aryans or SS officers must prove in their bloodlines that they're Aryan, and I mean they can go back centuries. Really, I think they can go back as far as 2 centuries to make sure you are full-blooded Aryan. You have no Jewish descent. Anyone with a Jewish background, and you definitely cannot be homosexual, and so forth. There's no way. You're not allowed to be. So, what he doesn't tell anyone yet, and he thought finding the Holy Grail would basically make it so that they didn't care, is that 1, his mother's Jewish, and 2, he's a homosexual. He doesn't tell anyone. I know. It's insane, right? And he's been an SS captain. Imagine if they found out. So eventually his ruck runs out and they want to do his whole background check. So now he's in a tight spot, right? What do you do? So Otto Rahn eventually decides to make a choice, and he wanders off into the mountains with a bunch of sleeping pills, takes 2 bottles full, and goes to sleep on some cold mountainside, not to wake up again. So Otto Rahn is at that point gone, because I guess he failed at finding the cup the Holy Grail, upset with himself, and knowing if they found out his mother's Jewish and if they ever found out about his homosexual sexuality, I guess he'd probably face worse, right?
It would have been public execution at that point, probably. But
yeah, and probably not pleasant, right?
No, not at all. Maybe because we're now in the future in terms of this event, and I'm looking at it like, couldn't you just fake your records? It's not a computer. I mean, you just fake it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm not. I didn't really find any information on how exactly they proved by going back through your ancestry. When we talk about Tibet, we can talk about how they kind of crudely tried to get bloodlines, which we can talk about now, I guess. But the ability to, I mean, there's like no computer databases. I don't know if they had some kind of blood work they could do on top of it. If anyone knows, you can leave a comment on here.
Well, they did a lot of head measuring, which didn't prove shit.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to... So, Atlantis. We have a young man named Schaefer. He is sent on an expedition. This is actually before this. To go find where the Atlanteans migrated to. And if he can find where the Atlanteans migrated to and determine that they had the same head measurements as the German people, then he could conclude that it is a fact that the Germans were direct descendants of the Aryans. So for some reason they believed that Atlanteans, when Atlantis fell in one day from volcano and I guess an ice moon and whatever, it was flooded out. They got this idea that they went to Tibet because it was an isolated area in the Himalayas, and you really didn't get a lot of exploration at the time of this area. And with the people of Tibet, they really only talked to or worked with or did anything with the English. The English Empire, the British Empire was the only ones they really talked to. So this is actually before the war. They send Schaefer down through the Suez Canal out to India to see if he can get past to Tibet through India. Now, the problem was, on the way down to India, newspapers in Germany talked about how this was an SS expedition and not just... They should have kept it quiet. So at this point, the British obviously picked this up. The Indian government picks this up, and then they run newspapers saying that there's a spy in going to India from the SS. So he can't even get into India at this point. He's not allowed in India. He's not even allowed. Obviously, he's not allowed in Tibet. He can't get to India. Himmler actually talks the British into letting him in to India. I believe the British at this point were just trying to appease the Germans and the Nazis. They didn't want, obviously, they fought in a war that was brutal for World War I, not very long before this. They didn't want another war, so they're not trying to appease him. So they actually do let him in. He's allowed to go near Tibet, but not into Tibet. So he's up there. They're searching for just random crap. They find a bunch of people from Tibet nearby. Now, these people are shorter, dark-skinned, dark-haired individuals. They don't look like Aryans. They're not tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed people. He begins measuring their heads. I mean, you know what I mean? The distance between the eyeballs, the distance from the bridge of the nose to the top of the forehead, distance from the nose to the chin, eyebrow distance from each other, and stuff like that, to see if there's any type of connection. And since there isn't any, they always have a reason, right? They always have a reason. Well, this is just a regular person from Tibet. If the Aryans, or the Atlanteans, which would be Aryans, I guess, went to Tibet, they would obviously be the upper class, the royals, the people in charge. These aren't. This is just whatever. So, he needs to get to royalty. And the only problem is, England and Tibet do not want him in the country. Or in the region, even. So, apparently one day, he's sitting there, they're at camp, and one of the a royal Tibet royalty goes by on a camel or horse or something, and one of their translators says, "Hey, that's actually royalty." So he talks to the guy. They used, like I was mentioning before, they used the swastika as a way to try to say, "Hey, we're similar people," and to send a letter to up to the royalty to see if we can get in. And after a few days, he gets a letter back saying that they're allowed to be there for 14 days to perform their tests, if you will, to see if they're actually Alanians in Tibet. The English do intervene with this and make it so that they aren't allowed to really go. But at the end of the day, yes, they find no Alanians or Aryans in Tibet. They were looking for, like, I guess their head, the northern German heads are narrower, taller than what they were measuring out in Tibet. So that just turns into a big waste of fucking time by Schaefer at this point. But you could see the lengths they go at to try to appease this occult and to try to make it seem like they are the master race. And then they always come up empty, right?
They never find shit. Now, because also before the war even started, they were traveling all across Europe to different museums. And they were studying artifacts that were in these museums, mainly that had to do with writing. Because they wanted to prove... Well, they were picking artifacts to loot when the war started. Basically to prove that writing and all of that started in Northern Europe and not Mesopotamia. But again, no proof of any of that. So that was helpful on their part. But when they came back from Tibet, they came with seeds. Why would they have seeds? Well, because they wanted to restart their farming communities that they had a long time before the Third Reich, and they wanted to go back to the way, pure Germany was with their farming communities that a lot of them were very excited about. Now, where did they want to start these farming communities? Well, after the war started, the Nazis took over Crimea in Operation Barbarossa, which Hitler saw it as a way to protect Romanian oil fields from the Soviet attacks, but Himmler wanted to conduct archaeological digs and wanted to find proof that the Crimean Peninsula was part of Germany's homelands from the past, which is where he wanted to restart these farming communities. Now, when they got there, there was obviously people living there, which they either got pushed out or immediately just killed by the Third Reich. Which also goes into, it's no surprise that the Nazis were a bit of a rude bunch. But
just a little bit.
One of their big plans was to start a museum using entire skeletons of dead Jews to show Aryans just how different they are compared to them. Really sick shit. But yeah, before I forget, we did mention Thor's hammer, and this made me laugh because Himmler was convinced that it was an early war weapon of his Aryan forefathers back in the Golden Age, because he said it implies an early knowledge of electricity, and then he tried to recreate it as an EMP device, but of course was again unsuccessful. Because the Nazis, they always they came up a little short at times, but yeah, it's just interesting shit. Himmler's group was the Ahnenerbe, who they were trying to find.
Yeah,
the past shit, and eventually he got so full of himself that he gifted to Hitler a leather-bound book of all the Ahnenerbe beliefs and what he thought was facts, and Hitler basically got furious and told him, again paraphrasing, cut the shit.
Just cut the shit, dude.
Hitler was just sick of it at this point. He's like, all right, we get it. You're into some weird shit. Enough. But That was the tip of the iceberg, basically. And then it gets into technology, which we will definitely be talking about next, I think.
Yeah, definitely in another episode. But another funny story I was going to talk about when they were trying to find the Germania. He used the Ananiba to try to find out where the original copy was. Himmler was so obsessed with that he wanted the original copy, and through, I guess, tons of research and trying to find out what happened with it and everything else, he found out that during the Dark Ages the book was destroyed. However, there was an official copy, a manifest, complete copy that was done by the Romans after, and he wanted it. He found out that it was actually the possession was in a family in Italy. And at the time, this is before the war started, they were trying to persuade Mussolini to ask the family for the manifest. So Mussolini says, yeah, no problem, I'll go down there. And what doesn't make any sense to me is that he's a dictator too, so I don't know how he didn't just take it. But he goes to the family, and he asks, and basically the grandfather says, stick it. Yeah. Paraphrasing like Josh does. We're not giving it up. So he doesn't get the book, which infuriates Himmler. He's pissed. So as the war goes on, he's thinking about, I want to get that book. And he gets the perfect opportunity. When the Allies land in southern Italy, and Italy gives up, basically surrenders to the Allies, the Nazis obviously have to they launch an offensive into Italy to protect their southern flank. They don't want to have them push too far up Italy. So at this point, he sends an SS group of soldiers to go find this book. They go to the house. They can't find it. They ransack the whole place. And they go to several other places and they cannot find it. Well, the book's in the first place they looked, in the house. And this is what's funny about it. The family actually hides in the cellar. And they can't somehow they don't find the door to the cellar to find the family. And the second thing is the book is in a room off their main living room. It's a door behind a wardrobe. They slide a wardrobe in front of this door. Somehow they can't find the door. They don't open the door. And inside the door is a trunk. Inside the trunk is a bunch of laundry. And inside the laundry was the manifest. They don't even open the door, dude. They can't find the door. How are you elite SS troops? You can't even fucking find a door to a cellar where the family's hiding, and the door behind a fucking wardrobe in a room, right? Wouldn't you be like, yeah, well, move this piece of furniture out of the way or something, or furniture looks odd here. Open the doors or something. Insane. And that was like, couldn't find it, never found it. That was towards the end of the war, obviously, because the Allies have landed in Europe through Italy, and he died, committed suicide, Himmler, not knowing where that final manuscript was.
Jesus Christ. I don't know what it is with Nazis and not being able to find secret doors, but historically they weren't good at it. But yeah, if you know the book is in the house, wouldn't you do it? Wouldn't you tear everything apart?
Yeah, I'd search that whole house. The wardrobe would be sitting there. I'd probably fucking destroy it and be like, oh shit, there's a door back here. And then there'd be, there's just clothes in here. Oh, there it is. No. In the trunk. I don't know. He couldn't even find the cellar. They hid. The family said they stayed in the basement or the cellar for 18 days before they came out. And I forgot the name of the family, man. I didn't even write it down. But for them not to find this makes no sense to me. Like, you don't know the architecture of a building. Like, if you're walking through this building, you're like, well, what is this huge gap? Because, when they build houses and stuff, they make them economical. You're not going to have a huge fucking open space in between four walls that you can't get to. So if they're walking around looking at the rooms, wouldn't you be like, there's a lot of room here, I can't. It doesn't make sense. There has to be something going on here. Nah, they just leave. And then they go check some bank vaults, some underground vault, and shit like that. And then funny story about this, once the war's over, the original manuscript is then brought to a bank, an underground vault in, was it Venice? And it must be cursed, because at that point, the day after it's put in this underground bank vault, it's flooded. It's flooded out. They had like the worst flood. And when they find this thing, there was painting stored down there, so everything was just in the water and then put onto this manuscript. So it gets almost destroyed. However, somehow they're able to save it after months of restoration, and now it's on display somewhere in Italy as one of like the most notorious writings in history.
I love that. I love how there's like an actual war going on, and this asshole is just sending people to find a book. Then he sends the dumbest people. Like,
they're elite SS.
Oh, that doesn't bode well for them.
But I mean, at the end of the day, this whole cult thing, Hitler himself, like you said, he's an atheist. Hitler doesn't believe in any of this shit. Hitler uses this as propaganda. He uses this to, one, get his people united on something. We're this great race, better than everyone else. We deserve, everything. We just take what we want. The non-pure bloods we got to get rid of to save Germany. That's what he uses it for. And he did a good job of it. As much of a piece of shit he is, he did a good job rallying all these freaking Germans. And the issue that brought him to power was the treaty signed after World War I for the Allies to sit there and basically, ask for so much money from Germany after World War I that they could not come up with. I mean, they were destroyed from the war, and now they're saying you need to pay us all back. Like England and France were like, you got to pay us all back for the damages. England went into more debt than France for the war, but France had more damage. So then England's like, well, that's not fair. They're going to get more money, but we went into more debt. So then they fucking make it so it's double the amount of money that they owe. So Germany's like, we're trying. They can't pay it. So then France comes in and just takes over coal mines to take, we're just going to take this. So now they definitely can't. They have less resources to sell to pay for it. So what does Germany do? They start printing money. Fuck it, right? Here, I'll just print it and send it to you. Print it, and what does that do? Hyperinflation. So then your loaf of bread costs 3 weeks' salary. And when you have that kind of desperation in the country from all this, like the people are, starving now. It's going downhill. Desperation. Hitler takes advantage of that. He comes through and he says, this is the reason, this is what happened, this. Blame the Jews, blame, Europe, the rest of Europe, and we're going to get better at it. And then he just said, fuck it. He took over, basically said, fuck you, we're not paying anything, and then built up a massive military, which they weren't allowed to have. But no one wanted to stop him at this point. They're like, we don't want to get into another war. And that's the whole reason that's what the occult thing works for him with his own people. And then it works for him against his enemies. They were stories of werewolves. That's the SS. They're the werewolves. They're Germania tribes. They were werewolves. They hunted in packs like wolves, and they struck without you even knowing, and then left. And you had no idea where they went. They struck, killed a bunch of people, and gone. That's the werewolf in them, right? And then when you start having allies see this on pamphlets and droplets about the SS's werewolves, that's, again, great propaganda to help deter troops, right? They're nervous now. These fucking guys are they really werewolves? You know what I mean? So he did a great job of using the occult to his advantage, even though he didn't believe in a goddamn word of it. And that's the reason they were so successful for a few years. I mean, the 1,000-year Reich lasted 6 years. Almost, right?
They were on their way. Couple snags along the way, but no.
But Himmler was the nut. Himmler was in big time into the occult, and he believed it. Hitler used it as a tool. Hitler didn't agree with it at all Hitler was a piece of shit for what he did, but Himmler was the justification behind what he did, or tried to justify what he did. Not that I agree with his justifications at all. It was fucking dog shit justifications. But at the end of the day, Himmler was even more evil than Hitler. And that's saying something. Everyone says Hitler's the most evil person in history. Yeah, he's really, 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 really evil. But if you study Himmler and look at what Himmler's done, he is even worse than Hitler.
Dude, and just the fact that Himmler full-on believed in the occult. And with the An and Eba, and they had their castle, which is something right out of a fucking movie. The evil guy has a castle. And above all the doorways, there's painted on runes. And
yeah,
they did ceremonies, and they did baptisms with a dagger and all this shit. And then, at the end of the war, they were trying to hide what they were doing, so they collapsed the castle as best they could, which they didn't really have anything to use. So all they did was take out a few towers. But then when the Allied troops looked in there and saw what was going on, they found rooms full of rings that he would give to all of his SS officers in his group that had runes on them. And then they found all these books on witchcraft and all of this shit. And they found all of this occult, research. And they were like, what the fuck was going on in here?
Can you imagine finding that shit?
Oh,
even the lightning bolts on the SS was a symbol that they thought would help them in war and fighting, to give them strength. Mm-hmm. Everything meant something when it came to that, and Himmler was the guy behind it all.
Oh my god, it's just interesting shit. It really is, because I didn't know too much about it until recently, but I've seen, obviously, Indiana Jones and all that is very heavy on the occult stuff and artifacts, and then you watch movies like Hellboy, and you see him fighting Nazis that were, doing black magic and shit, and you're like, all right, well, that's a fun story to put on a movie. And then you look into it, and it's like, no, this is a lot of shit they actually believed, and
they thought it was fact.
They thought it was fact, and they full on dove headfirst into this shit during a war. Yeah, millions of people are losing their lives, and this asshole's looking for a book with a group that can't find anything in a house.
Yeah, that made no sense. You're sending elite fighting forces in the SS down to cover your southern flank. You're in danger of losing the war, because now you're fighting a war on three fronts. You got from the English Channel, you got from the south, and you got the eastern flank and the front from there. Spend your time fucking defending your country. This guy is worried about a book that he already knows. I mean, they read it. They have copies of it, but he wanted the original so bad. The occult basically did them in at the end of the day. It helps him at first get unity, but at the end of the day, they were more worried about, or Himmler at least with the SS, he was the head of the SS and the Gestapo. He was more worried about occult artifacts than continuing to fight for his country.
Boy, did Hitler pick the wrong guy to be on his side, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got Goebbels too. He's up there too. He's the propaganda guy. So he's another one that was, a big pile of shit. But Himmler, set the stage for all that.
Just full on batshit crazy. But then, it goes into, like we mentioned, it goes into the technology and other things, which we will touch on. Because it is, in our opinion, it's a very interesting bit of history to go into.
Yeah, so I love the World War II era, not because of what happened. I'm not a piece of shit like that, but I'm a big RTS fan, right? Real-time strategy war games. Studying how the movements, because at the end of the day, the Nazis were very good at waging war. So that's interesting. And then the other interesting part was looking at how someone can captivate the minds of an entire population to then turn on their own countrymen because they're not, quote-unquote, Aryan, they have a different belief or religion, and decimate them and have people actually support that. As disgusting as it is, it's interesting to me on how something like that could be done. You know what I mean? So you got that, you got the whole war aspect of it, and it's an interesting time to me. That's why we wanted to do this in September. Like I said, war officially started September 1st, 1939. So it's an anniversary month. But the technology part, I wanted to do an episode on that because we got, I mean, as stupid as they are with some of the stuff, I mean, they were brilliant when it came to, especially rockets, jet engines, propulsion systems like that. They were well ahead of us, like two decades ahead of us. And then we get into UFOs because they actually made a UFO themselves. Aliens, time travel. The documents we found when we went through some of their secret testing areas is insane. Now, did they actually make some of this stuff? Is beyond it's a speculation because they could have destroyed it. But we have I want to do a whole episode, which will be our next episode, to continue with this, but to do the technology side, because if they made some of the stuff they had blueprints for and all the designs for, it's insane.
Yeah, I'm very excited to dive into that next. But yeah, we had to do this before we got into that because there was so much history before the technology. Basically wanted to, enlighten you guys as to what started the occult shit, which started the crazy Nazi shit, which then started the crazy technology shit. So
yeah. So there'll at least be one more episode about the Nazi nonsense with technology. We've been debating on doing an episode about leading up to World War II with a World War II. What would you call him? With a guest that knows a lot about World War II. We'll have to see if we can figure some time out for that. We might not. We have to figure that one out. But definitely doing a technology episode.
100%.
Definitely going to do that next. Again, if you guys liked this episode or you want to hear more about it, just let us know in the comments, please. If you're listening and haven't followed us yet, give us a follow on Spotify, or if you're on Apple, give us a follow on Apple. You can follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram. We're basically on everything right now. So yeah, if you do, just rate us, please. Helps us with our algorithm. It's the first time you're hearing it, or if you've been listening to us a lot. Another thing I would ask is just tell your friends. If you enjoy listening to us, like some people do, I guess, for some reason, tell your friends about us. Let's get as much reach as we can. Help you with your commutes. Shout out to S. Hammers. He wasn't commuting the last time he listened to something. He was out on some beach. Unreal, right?
He was listening to us while on a beach?
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah. His latest comment on Spotify was, I think he commented, it might have been on X. He goes, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm not listening to you guys while I'm commuting. I'm actually listening to you here." And he sent a picture of a beach scene. So,
hell yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. No matter where he goes, he listens. And also, like I was saying in other episodes, if you have any stuff you want to hear us try to sift through the secret ingredients, if you will, about any type of event or something, just let us know. Spotify, X, you can message on X, Instagram, anywhere, and we'll get it out. The only thing we ask is that we do that. You just give us a rating if you haven't rated us yet, and tell your friends. But we'll do our best to get whatever episode. We've done a couple so far. We did one for a person with the Green Brier incident for Cynthia. We did the UFO incident for Hammers. I think he actually mentioned something about the shark attacks, but it really wasn't. We were going to do that for Shark Week anyway, but I guess it was a half request, half not for that one. But yeah, I mean, this is our 40th episode too, by the way.
This is our 40th?
So, this is our 40th.
Hey.
We're moving along. Slowly but surely, we're growing. More and more people all the time. It's nice to see. We're trying our best here. And I just feel like before we sign out for the day, do you think it would have been so bad and Hitler would have been such a dick if he would have just sat down one morning and had a nice tall cold glass of Ovaltine and did a painting and maybe he wouldn't have been such a piece of shit.
I was thinking about that, and I feel like it would have amped him up more.
No.
And then it would turn our future into like the Man in the High Castle situation where we lose just because of how straight up buff he would have gotten off of Ovaltine.
Maybe it would have just made him a better painter. He could have focused all that on painting better. His paintings were too flat, if you will. It's too stiff. People's hands, when he painted them, were too stiff. There was no life in him. He had no emotion behind it. And that's why he's a motel painter.
Was that what people said about his art? It was too stiff?
That's what I say about it. You look at it. I don't know. People like it? I don't know. I'm just saying what I see. I don't know. I didn't actually look into any type of critiques on his painting. I just look at it and say that's stiff, man. There's no life behind it. It's not. There's no love in it. It's stiff.
I mean, it is stiff. I'm looking at it now, but yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right with saying it's motel art or hotel art. It's just
not hotel, motel.
Motel.
Definitely
sorry.
motel. Yeah. not upscale enough for hotel art.
I don't know. But what do you shitty doctor's office?
Or a shitty doctor's office, yeah. Like a dentist.
A dentist. Yeah. Not even a dentist, orthodontist.
Orthodontist
So
office.
while you're getting your braces tightened and you're in pain, you have to look at some shitty art on the wall. Oh, I wonder who did that. Maybe the Fuhrer. All right. I don't know. It's awfully flat.
Yeah, it's like flat, stiff. Yeah. Was he still painting during his rule, or did he give up on that? I don't know. I didn't look into that.
I don't know. See, I feel like he's the type of guy, or was rather, he's very dead, but he was the type of guy that, like, once he got shut down for his art, he never picked it up again. In my opinion, that's what I think. I feel like he got so mad and just turned off from the whole experience that he decided to kill millions of people instead.
No, it's the art. It's the reason. And I'm kind of glad you brought up. He's probably dead now because he was born in 1890 something. But I don't think he died that day at the bunker. And I think he got away. I think he moved to Brazil.
Yeah.
But anyway, maybe we'll do an episode on it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We'll think about it. There's a lot to go there. I was looking at a bunch of shit. I don't know. We'll get into this later, I guess. In Brazil about tunnels underground, and someone said they saw Hitler. So, back in like the 80s or something. But he would have been old as shit. So
they found him in a tunnel like a mole person, just
yeah. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening again. Like I said, rate us. Josh, you have anything further to say, or we're gonna get out of here?
I think we're gonna get out of here. I'm a little sleepy, and
yep.
Yeah, the coffee's wearing off. So, thank you for listening, and look forward to the next episode where we talk about Nazis and their wacky technology.
All right, guys. See you later.
Bye.